The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sharon Dooley. I'll be the moderator for this session. And I've just got a little bit of introductory material before I'll turn the meeting over to Tom. This topic is I'm New, Select Me. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Dell Software. They're the ones who make it possible for us to raffle off an Amazon gift certificate at every meeting, and we are very grateful for their support. If you haven't been to a SQL Saturday, find one. There's likely to be one right near you. They're everywhere. There's a few of the upcoming ones listed on this slide. And if you go to www.sqlsaturday.com, you can find one that's in your area. It's a full day of free training. I know at the one in Philadelphia, we usually have 6 tracks with 5 sessions in each track. And it's absolutely free. You get quality presenters. And you might be asked to pay $10 for lunch, but that's the only thing you will ever be charged. So check it out. The Business Analytics Conference is coming the end of next month, April 20th through 22nd in Santa Clara. Where this giving you a chance to save $150 off registration. And please use this code because the virtual chapter that gets the most registration will get a free pass to the conference to raffle off. The contest for the registration ends on April 1st, so don't put it off. April 1st is coming all too soon. PASS is a volunteer organization, and you can participate as a volunteer. Excuse me. Just go to your My Volunteering section of your profile, and you can sign up. Each month, there's a peer-nominated PASS member who's shown extraordinary dedication and effort in service to the data professional community, and you can nominate people for that. At the summit, the Passion Award is presented to a volunteer who has made significant contributions to PASS and the global data professional community. Stay in touch. If you're not a member of PASS, please sign up for a free membership and get on all the mailing lists for the virtual chapters you want to participate in. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Norman. In 1998, Tom changed his career focus to begin working with SQL Server. He has worked in all aspects of SQL Server, including administration, database development, business intelligence, and reporting services. He has worked in the finance and car dealership industry. His experience has included international deployments. Tom is the leader of the PASS virtualization chapter. Why I always get a frog in my throat when I'm doing this. Tom is the leader of the PASS virtualization chapter and the past president of the Denver SQL Server Users Group. And he's also a Microsoft certified professional. And now I'll turn the meeting over to Tom, and he can do his thing.
All right, let's get the right screen here, make sure we see everything. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm glad that you came by today. Thank you for doing that. Sharon, thank you for the introduction. I am, as you can see, I'm new Select Me. All right, let's see if this thing's going to be, hey, 1 second here. All right, I am a data architect. I am really a database everything gentleman because I am the only one in the company that is a database person in KPA. I live in Knightdale, North Carolina, but my company that I work for is in Denver, Colorado, so yes, I work 100% remote now. You're not going, well, why did you move from Denver? Well, grandchildren. So, you know, that pretty much explains pretty much everything. Like Sharon said, I am the leader of the Past Virtualization Virtual Chapter, so come on over and see us. Next month, we are actually going to have Brent Ozar, and he's going to be doing wait states on virtualization. So if you want to look at that, then come on and register. As you can see, I have spoken at several SQL Saturdays. Just a little bit about my company, not going to go in great detail. We're just basically an auto industry, work with them with safety, environment, HR, and finance information. All right, today's agenda. We're going to be talking about the parts of the select statement, the schema, the where clause, collation settings, alias names, order of processing, joins, and group bys. Now let's talk about some things we need to know before ever accessing data. Number one is stay out of production unless it is absolutely 100% necessary. That way you don't get in trouble, you don't lock things when you didn't mean to. If you can, get a backup, research it offline if possible. And of course, if it has sensitive data, PII data, personal identifiable information, have that data scrubbed before moving it out of production. If it's too big to move, then make sure your select comes back very, very quickly. If it's not coming back, then cancel it before you ever, before it goes and locks some stuff up. Now remember that select statement is read-only, so you know you can go and basically you're not really going to hurt any of the data, but with that said, you can definitely lock rights depending upon the isolation level. And the isolation level that is by default on an install will lock a write. Called the isolation level is called read committed. Remember also that bad joins can take forever, or joins that basically have no index on them. You can create a foreign key without an index. And like we said, doing a select will not change the data. So where is the data? First of all, you're going to have a database name, and you're going to have a server. Now most of us have seen this particular screen. This is Management Studio. This is the tool that you will most likely be in most of the time. Here you can see Management Studio to where it's wanting to connect to a server. So you are going to know the server. If it's an instance, you'll have to put in the instance and possibly even the port if it's a static port. Now, the next thing is once you do get in, you are going to see the different databases that are available to you. As you can see here, we have AdventureWorks and T-SQL 2012. And just FYI, we are going to be using the T-SQL 2012 database today. That actually comes out of the Microsoft Querying exam book. So just a little bit different database than you normally see with AdventureWorks. Now, let's talk about data access structures. So when you're selecting data, like we said before, we want it to come back as quickly as possible. So some different data access structures that we look at, we can talk about a heap table, We'll talk about a non-clustered index and a clustered index. Well, let's look and see what those actually look like. Here's a heap table. A heap table is basically just a bunch of stuff thrown into the room, and if you want to go get that document that's right there, how long will it actually take you to get that document? As we all know, shuffling through all that paperwork, if you didn't know it was in that particular location, it would take you a long time to go find that particular document. This is a table that normally has no indexes on it. The next thing would be a non-clustered index. Well, a non-clustered index is kind of like an index in the back of a book. And what you would do is that if you want to go find out about data formatting and you want to find about string formatting, then you would go to page 278. So you got to kind of look at it and go, okay, where is that information I want, and let me go get it. So it takes a little bit more time than if you knew exactly what page that data was on. If you knew it was on page 2, then you would immediately turn there without going anywhere else. So that talks about the different types of tables and how the data might look. Now let's talk about the parts of a select statement. We have, of course, the select from, where, order by, group by, and having. And you'll notice that the only two that are absolutely required is the select and from. But I will advocate to you that the where clause should always also be required. That way you're only pulling back the amount of data that you want to pull back. So let's take a look at what that would look like. Let's go over to our demo. Oh, hang on a second. There we go. Let's get back all the way to the top of the demo here. So when you select from the table, you can do just select star from a specific table. And this table actually only has one particular field in it. And you can see that it's called in, okay? So when you actually select, you should select naming the columns. If you have a table that happens to be 100 columns wide, and you do a select star, you're going to be pulling all that data back to you. And that may not be a good thing, especially when you get to production, because if you're doing a select star and you're pulling all the data back, but the application only needs to use 3 of the 100 fields, then why are you pulling the rest of the data back over the network? You're going to slow things down. In fact, I even saw in one example, one of my people actually was using an Excel spreadsheet to pull data out with, and they were selecting all the fields, and guess what? It timed out. But as soon as we limited the fields to just what she wanted, then we turned around and actually got the data back very quickly. So be sure and limit the fields to only what you need to know. Now, the question is, what if you don't know those field names? What if you don't know what it is? Well, instead of selecting all the rows, just select 10 of them, or 5 of them, or even 1 to go get the names of your columns, so you can then go turn around and actually get the data that you want to look at. Now, the one thing I do want to also show you right quick is a tool that I use, and it's called Apex SQL Doc. And if you know nothing about the database, especially if you're going to a new company, you can get this tool and document the database. You go to the server, go to the database, go to the table, and if we go look at, say, the employee table, it will actually show us information about the table, and also any primary keys, foreign keys, and then some identities and anything that is referencing it, some foreign keys, anything that also, if I had something depending upon it, like sales orders, then it shows that particular table. It will also show views, and it will also show store procedures. So if you're brand new to a company, when I first started with KPA, this is the very first tool that I asked them to purchase. And it's a great tool to actually document your database and go quickly find something, because if I want to go over sales orders, for example, it's a hyperlink. So it's called Apex SQL Doc if you're interested in it. Now, let's go back to the presentation here. Get to the right screen here. Oh, a lot of fun switching between. There we go. Well, let's minimize this. There we go. Do it that way. All right. The very next thing that we have is schemas. Now, schemas is just a distinct namespace to facilitate the separation of management and ownership. Now, I've used it, for example, right now I'm working on a project of migrating company by company data from an old database to a brand new database and new website that they've redesigned. And there are stored procedures and tables and objects that basically that I am in turn, all I want to use them for is for conversion. Once I'm totally done with conversion, guess what? I can get rid of that particular schema. You might do it for logs, you might do it for other things. But if you haven't been using schemas, and I was one years ago that basically said, no, just put everything in DBO, we're good. Then in turn, this is a very good way basically to segregate what you're doing. I've even got in my database, because I have some scripts that I have to run over and over again because there's an error in the UI, I even have a tools schema that allows me to go in basically with a stored procedure and pass it some parameters to set some training complete, because it doesn't get completed right when the website times out or the client just doesn't complete their session. So there's some different things you might be able to do with schemas. Now let's go look at the demo there. Let's see if I can get this over there this time. All right. So when you're using schema, one thing you want to note is that you have to designate the schema information. So let's open up Object Explorer here. Now let's go to the database. And you'll notice in the tables here that there's HR, production, sales, stats, but there's also DBO. So if you create a brand new table or a brand new object within the database, and you don't give it a schema created with a schema, then by default it will be created with DBO. Now let's go look and see what happens is if I don't turn around and give it the schema information, will this work? Well, we get our red squiggly line, and of course we come back and no, it will not work. If you're going to be using schemas, don't forget that you also have to put in the schema name to get the database. And if we do that, then we get our data that's in the database. Now, one other thing that I talk about while we're on schemas a little bit further is we're actually going to go a little bit further than schemas, and we're going to talk about aliasing information. So let's go back to the slide presentation for a moment. Now, work clause. Let's talk about the work clause for a moment. And the filters, work clause basically just filters the data based upon your search criteria. So, for example, if you wanted to find all the people in Seattle, you might do, and if you had the employee table, you might do where city equals Seattle. So let's kind of take a look at that, and we'll also look at the aliases we were talking about just a moment ago. So let's go back to that for a second. All right, so let's go back up here, and then we'll talk about some other things, and then we'll get down to the where clause. Thought I had a screen on this. I apologize, guys, or a PowerPoint slide, but it still works here. So when you are doing select with fields and stuff, especially when you start doing inner joins, outer joins, and you have a bunch of tables listed here, do your colleague a favor that's following you. Go and alias your table and then put in basically where that column is. So it's very important, especially when you have 3 or 4 or 5 tables that's joining together. Instead of having nothing in front of it and like going, oh, what table does that belong to? It really makes it easier for everybody to read, and even you later on, 6 months down the road, going, oh, that field's in the employee table. So be sure and do that. Now, notice also one thing that I always like to denote too is that SQL keywords are in blue, okay? I personally do not like to name any objects with a SQL keyword. So instead of using, say, address, I might name it home address. So just an example there that you want to stay away from that, if possible. Also, you can use, I'm going to expand this out, when you script it out, you will see the square brackets. If you just do a table right-click script, it's actually going to turn around and give you this script you're looking at with the brackets. Now, personally, I find this a lot harder to read. So I always take the brackets off. If you take the brackets off, that's when you see that address here is actually a keyword. Now, with a caveat there, if you turn around and actually say title of courtesy with spaces, you do need the square brackets. But again, I always try not to name them with spaces. Okay? Now, let's go on down to our where clause where we're talking about it. And here is an example in the employee table. We want to go find all the employees that basically come up with this Seattle. And you turn around and you actually see right here that there are only 2 employees in this database that live in Seattle. Here's another example. Let's go find an employee with the country USA. And there we actually find 5 employees that come up to that particular criteria. Now, going back to our slides for a moment. Collation setting. Now, collation setting is something that you need to be aware of. And I'll show you an example in a moment exactly why you need to be aware of. Because a collation setting can affect your joins and also the data in a where clause. So in the US, the default collation order is case insensitive, accent insensitive. It is set at the server level. But be aware you can change it and have it be at the database level or at the field level. Now, a Windows International installation matters. I worked in the UK for a while, and before I ever went over there, we were taking a product from the US over there. Before I got over there with the databases and everything, they'd already built the SQL Server and these the OS, and they made it UK or British UK installation instead of an American installation. Well, guess what? This application that we took over there was not basically built for international capabilities. And of course, we didn't know that at the time. We probably should have known because we didn't have any varchars or anything in the database. So when I went to get that particular database in the UK and we started doing some queries and stuff, well, the collation order was different and we were not getting data back. Now in this particular case, because it was set at the server level, we actually ended up having to reinstall the OS and reinstall the database to get it to work properly. So just be aware that collation order does matter. Now let's look at a demo of exactly what happens and why it does matter. Okay, so as we notice here, we notice that basically Washington is listed as WA, all capitals. Now, if we turn around and actually select this query right here, you will see that we get back Washington capital WA, even though we put in lowercase a. Now, if we turn around and actually change the collation order on just that column, and one of the reasons you might do that is if you did store something that you absolutely wanted to be case sensitive, you can do it at the column level. So if we execute this and change the collation, now if I go back and say, well, give me the data, everybody that lives in WA with lowercase a, no data found. So this is why it is important that you need to know that a collation order can get you. Now, the way you can see what the collation order is on the table, and you can also see it on the database also, but we'll just look at it at the table. So if we go to the column and we go down here to region and we do a right click and look at its properties, you will see that it is now case sensitive, accent sensitive. So it's very, very important that if you don't get data back, this is one way that you can kind of go, look, I know I've got people in there with WA in the database. Why can't I get them out? Okay. So that would be one of the reasons that you might have that. You'd also notice we're still not going to get data back even when you put lowercase WA. Now by default, and we'll change it back to case insensitive. By default, this is how it's set up. So basically, this would work in either scenario with WA uppercase or WA lowercase. All right? So, all right, we talked about, I showed you aliases a little bit earlier, but again, use aliases. It's going to just make the name clearer, and use the full alias in exporting data when using join. So I personally prefer, let's go back and look at the demo, and it's a preference only. I prefer one-letter designees for aliases. There's some people love 3 letters, some people love 2 letters, but I look at it as the fact that the less amount of data I need to look at in characters and stuff, the easier it is for my eyes. So you'll notice that if we do this, of course, you'll use an alias. Now, if you're doing joins and everything, and the field name is the same between 2 tables, then it's going to force you to use an alias. This is one way to use an alias. The other way to use an alias is with the as clause is also an alias too. So you can do it either way. I believe, if I remember right, that this is ANSI standards. They like it that way versus not having the as there. So it can be either way. Okay. All right, so going back to the demo again, or to the slide deck. Order of processing. Now, order of processing matters, and I sure wish SQL sometimes would have just, how we construct a select statement. I sure wish they would have turned around and put it in the same order we built it, but they did not. So when you're going and creating a select statement, you have to remember what the order of processing is. So it's the order of processing is from, where, group by, having, select, and order by. So let's see where that could cause us issues when we're writing a select statement. All right. All right, so if I come down here and I say in my where clause, I've aliased the region field to call it state. If I come down here and want to turn around and execute this, this is giving me a red squiggly line saying, sorry, you can't do this. And the reason being, if you remember your precedence order, is from is first, then where is right in there before the select ever comes up. So you can't use the alias down in your where clause. Instead, you would have to write it like this, to where that you would have region, and then this particular query, of course, is going to work. So watch your aliases and realize you need to know that order, how things are processed, whether your alias is available to you at that point or not. Now let's go on to joins. But before we talk about joins, let's talk about keys. On every table, or almost every table, and in my professional opinion, I think every table should have a primary key, because it's just normally an identity or GUID, and I use identities. It identifies a specific data row. So even if you had a table that would say maybe a lookup table that only had 10 values in it, how do you know later on that someone doesn't want to add another column to it and then go ahead and turn around and duplicate the value, which they shouldn't do in the first place, but if they did, then I have a primary key where I can delete one of the records. Now, the other kind of key is called a foreign key, and this creates a relationship between two tables. So if I, for example, instead of having the address information in the employee table, I actually created an address table because I realized, for example, I have a home address, I have a post office box address, I have a work address, then you would create a foreign key, say, between the employee name and the address table to say that these addresses belong to that particular employee. And I think we'll see that here in just a moment. Okay. Now let's talk about joins. Here's the several different joins that you can do. And these are just a list of some of them. You have cross join, inner join, self join, left outer join, right outer join, and a full join. So let's take a look at each one of those joins now. First of all, we're going to go back to our numbers table, and the very first join we're going to do is a cross join. It's also called a Cartesian join, if you've ever heard of the word Cartesian, because you end up with data basically from all rows and all columns together. So here we go with this cross join. You can see that we have 111, 123, 222, 123. So it took all the numbers from the number table, and then it also joined in the shift number table to give you the shifts and stuff. So this is an easy way basically to get this data. I don't I've only used this like once or twice. I don't use it that frequently. Now let's talk about an inner join and what an inner join does. Okay, so an inner join is basically that it's going to match data between tables. So in this particular example here, we have a supplier table, we have a products table. Well, in the products table, this is going to be your foreign key, and this is going to be your primary key. It's always a good idea to name your primary key. I always name it something similar to the table. And then the foreign key being the same, so it's easy to tell that it goes back. I have some tables in my company now that they did not name them the same, and it does make it rather difficult to figure out what goes to what without scripting out the foreign key and see what's going on. So on an inner join, for this data to come back, and I'm going to go ahead and run it, the identity must be exactly the same between the two for it to come back. It's not going to bring back any nulls or anything like that, and nulls do get removed. And one thing to remember is a null does not equal a null. So if we had two nulls, you're not going to get a match there. This is a join that you're probably going to use the vast majority of the time, and I use this join probably in the high 90%. Is this the join that I write? The other joins, I use them occasionally when I have special circumstances. Now, a self join would be basically going in and turning around and joining back to the same table. Now, if we run this particular one, it's going to give you a list of all the employees and their managers. Maybe. Notice that Sarah Davis is not listed as an employee. Well, why not? Well, that's because that we're doing an inner join and saying that the manager ID must match the employee ID. And Sarah Davis, being the CEO, is the one that does not have, she does not have a manager ID because she's not really reporting to another employee. We all know she reports to the board of directors, but not to another employee. Also, while we're here, I'll just show you a brand new function in 2012 and higher, the new concat function. And it allows you to bring all this data back and basically turn around and create the names together when they really are two separate fields. So instead of stringing everything together, now you can use the concat. I did see a demo last week myself that someone used the concat with different data types, and it all came back together. It figured all the data types out and put it all back together, which I thought was really cool because I didn't realize it would do that. So you might want to try that out and take a look at it, and I know I'm going to be using it in the future and stuff. Now, you can leave the word inner out of the word join. Now, for clarity of reading again, and most people, of course, in the industry has been there, but for clarity of reading, I still say and advocate that you would want to put the word inner join there just to help your colleagues or someone that's brand new. Think about that junior DBA that you might be hiring in 6 months that comes on, and maybe he's not familiar with that you can just leave inner off, and that join means inner join. So it just makes it for clarity of everybody if you actually spell it out. And there you'll notice me putting on the aliases as we talked about earlier. Now, a left outer join is basically going to get all the data, and I'm going to go ahead and run this because it'll make it a little bit easier to explain to you. Okay. Someone, okay. I don't have the rows in this particular database, sorry. But anyway, we'll go ahead and explain it. So A left outer join, what it does is it's going to bring you all the rows back as the supplier, and then if you had products that supplier had no products, then it would bring back that row. So if we had another supplier called Tom in Japan and he had no products, then we would be null, null, and null. So that's going to bring again back all the data from the left table, the upper table, the left table, but if there's no matches, it'll still bring back the left table and put in nulls for the product table. So just FYI, that's how that one works. Now let's go back in. Here's a left outer join 2, and this one should work because I didn't have to add data to the database, which is on my other computer. Here's another example where the manager is empty this time because we did a left outer join again. For the employee, we want to get Sarah Davis in there, but now we got Sarah in there and we have no manager because she happens to be the CEO. So this is a good example of where you might want to use the left outer join. And the right outer join is really just exactly the same, and that would be is that we would pull all rows back for suppliers, but we would only show where if the products were missing, we wouldn't show them or we get null again. So, and then a full outer join. See if I've got this particular table in there. Nope, I don't have the table in there. I removed it. So we're going to go ahead and go by that and come back to our group bys. Sorry about that. If you want to see that, let me know, and I will send you over the scripts, and also I can send you over the T-SQL 2012 database that's got all the extra stuff in it. All right, so let's go back to nulls for a moment. What is a null value? Well, it's an unknown value. It's not a blank value, but it's an unknown value. And how do nulls affect joins? We talked about it. Basically, a null does not equal a null. All right. So let's talk about group by and having. Now, there are some new functions that we don't get into in this particular session called Windows functioning, which gives you some more capabilities. And if you want to learn about that, Isaac Ben-Gon has got an excellent book on Windows functionings. But we're not going to cover Windows functionings today. We're going to still be using the old group by and having, which are a little bit easier to understand than the Windows functioning is. So it allows you to aggregate your data, and also having is like a where clause, but it's just the filter for a group by. So if you want to do like a where on a group by list, you have to use the having clause. All right, so let's take a look at that. All right. So here's an example of a group by and a having clause. So let's go ahead and run that, and that'll be easier to explain again to you. So what we want is a list of how many orders and the shipper ID and the year that they shipped of how many orders do you have. So we'll notice that in 2008, shipper ID 3 had 73 orders, but in 2006, they only had 51 orders. So you'll notice here, as you're doing this, see there's your having, and that's your group by. Now, in your group by, if you do not have a aggregate function, count, sum, max, some of those, then you do have to list all the other fields out there. And you'll notice that I've got the shipper ID, and I also have the year date again, because I can't use the alias because of the order in which things are processed by the engine. Okay, so there's one example of a group by having. Here's one that there's not a having, so I'm just going to get all the data back. And you'll notice I'm doing a count. And you'll notice all the different fields here, but notice I didn't have to list them because they are an aggregate function. So let's go ahead and run that. And basically what we'll see here is the number of orders, how many orders been shipped, the first ship date, the last ship date, and what's the total dollar value that they have turned around and actually shipped of orders. Now here's some resources for you. If you're brand new to SQL Server and you haven't used the select statement before or whatever, or you're fairly uncomfortable with it, or you're like me that your mind just goes blank every once in a while and you can't remember the command, then blogsqlauthority.com, David Pinal, is a real good like 101 lesson on how to do different things. He has an excellent website that he really relies on people just kind of forgetting or you know, if you're brand new to the system. The database that I was using, T-SQL 2012, is in this Querying Exams 2012 training kit. So if you need it, there you can actually go get the information. And if we have any questions, and I'll put up my contact information for anybody that would like to contact me, just let me know if you have other questions. Looks like then we'll be turning this into a series. This is number 1, and the next one I'll probably do is where did you go? Talking about the where statement. So we'll look for that here in the near future. Sharon, once again, thank you for inviting me today, and if there's any questions or whatever, I'll take them now.
Question. Can you use case statement in the group by?
Can you use a case statement in the group by? Yes, you can. Again, if you're doing the case statement in the select and does not have an aggregate in it, you're not doing an aggregate, then you're going to have to turn around and put that also in the where clause the same exact way.
And John Day says this was excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been giving this to SQL Saturdays. I actually gave it last weekend in Richmond, and we'll put in a plug again for SQL Saturdays. Check it out. Check the ones near you. Speakers travel far and wide basically to come give you content, and I'm starting to try to give basically brand new type of presentations, newbie print. You're really newbie, you're a beginner. I'm trying to get those type of presentations now.
Sarah would like to see you, ask if you would be able to show an example of the case statement in the group by, because when she tried it, it didn't work for her.
Okay. Well, in the data set I've got, let me see if I can do this. I'm trying to think of the data. I'll tell you, instead of me trying to do it online, Sarah, if you'll take and actually email me, I'm pretty sure it can be done, but I will create one for you and send it to you. Just take my email down of armordb@gmail.com and email me, and I'll get that to you. Okay, we have anything else?
No, I think that's it. Let me, another comment. Thank you for the seminar. I really appreciate the fundamentals of the database/SQL. Please please continue the series.
Okay, yep.
I will post, the session is being recorded. I will post it, assuming that the bug that kept me from posting for a while has gone away. It will be at dba.sqlpath on the Meeting Archives page.
Okay.
Okay?
And Sharon, I can send you a PDF, and then I can send you the script demo if someone would like to have it.
Okay, yeah, why don't you send it all to me and I'll post them all.
Okay.
Okay, well, I thank you, Tom, for a very interesting presentation. It's interesting to see it all broken down when you've done a select statement as long as I have. It becomes sort of second nature and you stop thinking about it. And it's nice to start thinking about it in pieces again.
Well, it is. It is, and especially don't forget that collation order that can bite you.
I know that can really kill you. And I have one thing left to do, and that's to announce the raffle winner. And our lucky winner today is Jean Joseph. Some of you have heard him speak to this group and headquarters. So I'm very glad he's won a prize. Headquarters will be in touch with him to notify him about the prize. And I think that's all we have. And I'll see you all. It's the second Wednesday in April. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.